Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. Well, we've talked about many things on Just Relationships. And today we're talking about polyamory. And we are looking at what it's like to have a throuple. Not a couple, but a throuple. And what that means in our modern times. I am very pleased to introduce to you Ian Jenkins, who is the author of the book, 3 Dads and a Baby. Yes, that's 3 Dads and a Baby, Adventures in Modern Parenting. Welcome, Ian Jenkins.
Thank you, Dr. Duffy.
Well, my pleasure. So you have a very interesting life, adventures in modern parenting, having a partner, a gay partner for 10 years, and then actually inviting a third person into your personal life and having a throuple, which is the first time I ever heard of that word, which is fascinating. And you and Alan, who were together for 10 years, talked about back and forth, should we adopt, or should we have a child in some other way? And kind of yes, kind of no. And then Jeremy came along and Jeremy said, yes, let's go for it. Let's have a child. Did I get that right?
Yeah, basically. Alan and I had talked about having kids, but we never made the leap until Jeremy kind of had us in more discussions about it. And also because one of Jeremy's friends came forward and offered us embryos. Yes.
And that was the cincher, because were you considering adopting before that?
Well, we had talked about adopting, and I think parents who adopt or foster are, of course, fantastic people. But, my local experience is that this wonderful couple who lives next to us, they seem like model potential parents. They got turned down by agencies, and we did not think that we would have success as 3 unmarried men. So we didn't even go down that road.
Right. I understand. And the offer of an egg, someone offered you their eggs, to donate their eggs, or you said offered embryo?
Embryos. So those are, fully formed miniature human, as opposed to eggs, which would be unfertilized.
Yes.
Embryos freeze better than eggs. So this family had 3 children already through assisted reproduction, and they had 2 unused frozen embryos that they did not want to discard, but they did not want to just give away to someone they didn't trust.
Boy, that is already almost cooked, right, Ian? And not only... because I do have friends who were a gay couple who were considering adoption back and forth, and then a friend offered to donate an egg or her eggs, and that completely put them on the other side of it. So, but the embryo is even further along. So that's a wonderful thing. And so tell us, you now have 2 children.
That's right. We had Piper first. She is now 3.5, and her brother Parker's going to be 2 in June.
And in your book, 3 Dads and a Baby, Adventures in Modern Parenting, you spend most of your time going over the surrogacy and all the extraordinary costs. And we know these 2 children are multi-million-dollar children, right? It really costs a fortune what you 3 went through to produce these 2 beautiful children.
Well, not multi-million for sure, but definitely expensive.
Yeah, I know, but we're looking at multi hundreds of thousands, right, per
Well, our
per
fixed
child.
we calculated $120,000 for Piper, and we didn't really set out to spend that much. You think like, oh, a cycle, that'll be, $30,000 or something like that. And, of course, when someone's going to carry a child for you, they deserve to be compensated. It's uncomfortable at times, especially at the end, of course. There's risk involved. It disrupts their life. They have to go through procedures and injections. They deserve every penny of that. And so we knew there would be some expenses. What really surprised us was the number of legal hurdles we had to go through.
Yeah.
Everyone who gets involved in this has to have legal contracts. So typically it would just be a married couple with a surrogate or something like that. But with us, we had to have separate contracts because we were unmarried. And so we had to have 3 contracts between us and our surrogate. We had to have, contracts between us and the embryo donors. Initially, we had to have contracts between us and our egg donor when we went down that road. So all of this just got multiplied. And then they wanted us to have a parenting agreement too, which normally you don't ask people to do that because everyone knows what a parent is and it's legally defined. But the clinic insisted on this, and that was another 4 attorneys, and everyone bills at $500 an hour. So it added up quickly.
Well, you guys obviously wanted to be fathers, to be parents, and to have children and to have a family. And I congratulate you. You went through so much for so many years. And as I understand from reading your book, that Piper and Parker are absolutely delightful. Absolute and worth a 1,000 times more than you went through to have them in your life.
They are a fantastic joy. I wasn't really a baby person before, and that was one of my worries. Is that I knew I wanted kids. I wasn't sure that I wanted babies, but they were so cute, and I fell in love with Piper. I mean, even before she was completely born, she had some birth complications, and we were just terribly worried about her. So that was a terrifying experience. But she's a wonderful kid now, super smart, picking up reading very quickly, polite and funny, and we just love her to bits. And Parker learning to talk still, but really sweet and good disposition. And both of these kids were great sleepers, which is a real plus.
What a godsend! Yes. So the thing about being a gay parent is that for the most part, it has to be deliberate. Right? It cannot be, it's not accidental unless one partners with someone who lived a partially heterosexual life and had already had children or something. But for the most part, gay parents go through a lot to become parents. And what you all went through is just amazing, lengthy, expensive, efforting on every level. But I want to ask you about first of all, the idea of having a gay partner, and the idea of polyamory, and just to distinguish for people as opposed to polygamy, where there are multiple partners, but they are married. And of course, we live in a culture that is very officially geared toward monogamy, yet we know the rates of extramarital sex are very, very high. And so then we look at serial monogamy, which is the norm, and many people accept, okay, one at a time. And then we look at having multiple sex partners, and again, many people do, unmarried or married. And then the question becomes, is it secret or is it not secret? And here, what you did, and so often it's secret, and this creates all kinds of jealousy and disruption. And even when it's not secret, when it is, as you said earlier, the legal aspect, in this case, a social contract of contracted for, we are now officially a throuple. We are 3 men having sexual relations and considering ourselves married for all intents and purposes. And so you didn't have to worry about secrecy. But don't tell me there's no jealousy ever. I can't fathom that. I would kill anyone who went near my husband. But of course, I don't know. That's just old-fashioned. Tell me, Ian.
Well, there's a whole lot to unpack there. I will start by recognizing that distinction between polyamory and polygamy. We are actually opposed to polygamy, not because we think we would abuse it or that it would be bad for us, but because in most societies where it's practiced and in some religious sects in the United States where they try to practice it, it's used to coerce women and girls, and it's horrible. So we don't want anything done that could facilitate that kind of coercion. For us, polyamory is the opposite of that. It's all about respecting your partner, being honest and open, letting them make free choices. So kind of strangely the opposite. And then, in our relationship, we're not really defined by sexual activity any more than a typical married couple with young kids is. We just happen to be gay guys. We wanted to have kids. What was the next thing was on jealousy, right? That's the big question. How do people manage this? So, I think that jealousy is something we are taught in our culture. Every example we see on, TV and media, typically if your partner has had an affair or is interested in somebody else, then, you're supposed to get upset. If there is an affair, then the relationship is supposed to end. There's usually a messy divorce. There's acrimony. There's an expectation of monogamy. And so I think people are kind of led to believe that you can only love one person. That's the training we get in a modern Western society, although that's changing. I just don't think that that's our human nature. As you noted, few people have an expectation of lifelong monogamy anymore. We're not really monogamous animals. And in the past, the evidence suggests that, humans lived in small bands of people where there weren't monogamous expectations, where we all treated each other with respect and honesty, and where there wasn't a controlling idea of who the parents were. There were kids in the village and they were raised by the village. Nobody was obsessed with like, who's my kid? I'm not going to give your kid anything. It's, us versus them. It was more of a community idea. And I think that actually is human nature. Of course, there could be jealousy in a relationship with more than one person in it. But what I say, just to sort of simplify it, is I don't really care what my partner does for other people. I care what he does for me. And if someone's taking care of me, I'm happy. If they find excitement and love somewhere else, that's great for them too. If they're not taking care of me, that's what would make me jealous, whether it's work or a hobby or just neglect. I mean, that would bother me, whether there's another person involved or not. So I'm worried less about what's going on with other people and more about what's happening between me and my partner.
Beautiful. That is such a wonderful way of putting it. Ian Jenkins, who is also an MD specializing in internal medicine. So I had meant to ask you about the voluntary aspect, and thank you for bringing that up, because the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is secrecy out of shame and that it's against norms. But the idea of how many involuntary polygamous marriages there are, and what a terrible submission for women and girls. And so thank you for including that piece. And of course, we looked at the idea of how much we are married, quote unquote, no pun intended, to the concept of monogamy, when it is so often not really, truly not the norm, and very disruptive. I don't know how you got to the point where you would be able to be in your new brain, your frontal lobe, to say, I'm not measuring how my partners treat other people. I'm measuring how my partners treat me, which is a wonderful way of looking at it. It is kind of like the pie is bigger. You just expand the pie. We have this notion of love in our society that if I love one more, I love the other less. Like there's just so much room in the love bank. And you're talking about love is expansive, and it's acts of caring, labors of love, and acts of service and help in every way. So what kind of reaction do you get from people in your world? I imagine you have a lot of gay friends and probably a lot of hetero friends.
Yeah, actually, before I move on to that, I want to totally agree with what you just said. I was on an event last night, and I was talking about the negotiation strategy of expanding the pie and helping everyone win, because jealousy came up on that podcast too. And I think that that's a beautiful point. I mean, most of the things that I do, like when I make dinner, I just make them for two instead of one extra person. And, no one's losing in that arrangement. A lot of times when, my partners are doing something separate from me, it's because it's an interest of theirs that I don't share as much. And it actually frees me, if I'm very busy with work, I don't have to feel like I'm neglecting my partner because they're off sharing some adventure on their own. And there's just more help to go around with the kids. And so, people kind of forget that aspect of it. They're focused on what they might lose as opposed to what they might gain. That's a hugely important point there. As far as the reactions.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ian. You're right. Let's stay with that for a moment, because when we look at the extended family model, which has been with us since millennium, it's the nuclear family model is only since industrial times, or it's very, very new and modern. And what we assume the nuclear family model is the norm is really not the norm even today in the world. And the huge advantages of the extended family, that the child always has some adult there, because there are so many people around who love, and the whole idea takes a village. And in the extended family model, if the child's not getting their needs met from one adult, they can get them met from other adults. And it's easier on everyone, the shared responsibility. And as a matter of fact, I've forgotten the social scientist who commented on it, but the idea of children in nuclear families being prisoners in many ways, that even if it's a one parent versus a two parent, that they're stuck. There's no one else around to help them if it's a dysfunctional arrangement or relationship, which it often is anyway. So the idea of the extended family model, I think, is ample. It's ample for everyone. And interestingly enough, throughout millennia, again, the extended family model has been mostly patriarchal. I mean, that's all we know, right? The extended family, the elders rule, and the younger, in one case of the extended family, the younger woman is the lowest on the totem pole, and is the one who becomes this servant in every way, shape, and form. But you have an extended family concept that is completely egalitarian and open and discussed, and everything is actively negotiated. So I just wanted to make mention of that as well, the advantages of the extended family.
Yeah, it's actually really nice. We have 2 of the 7 grandparents arrived last night, and I was making them breakfast before I came to this conversation. So yeah, just fantastic. Just a couple words about the patriarchy. Absolutely, that's a real problem. And I'm going to throw some crazy proposals out there. Let's have female presidents for the next 250 years, and let's switch and use women's last names for the next 2,000 years. Give it a little rotation. Women make every single person in the world. I think they should run it. That would be great by me. And we are trying to teach our children that, they needed to respect women, that women develop sooner than men as far as their, leadership skills and their cognition. And that's something to be valued, that our girl can be anything she wants to be, that she doesn't have to look or act or dress a certain way. We are big on freedom. So like I said, polyamory is about freedom, and polygamy was about control. So yeah, that's very much part of our child rearing strategy is trying to get people to look at things objectively and with a clear head and towards a respect for all persons.
Yeah, and we only really had the concept of property since the advent of agriculture, horticulture, and then agriculture, where the whole idea of land ownership. And then, of course, we had the patriarchy, where if you're going to inherit property, you better make sure that this child is not a bastard, that this child is really my legitimate heir. Hence, the subjugation of female sexuality and the original goddess cults. In the Mediterranean, when the matriarchy was matrilineal society, it really didn't matter who the father was. There was not even much of a concept. It was the brothers usually of the mother who adopted the fatherly roles. But the idea that everyone, all the children belong to everyone, I wish we had more of that in our society today. I hear so many people who say things like, why should I pay school taxes? I don't have any children in school. Or even worse, my children have gone through school. I don't need to pay school taxes anymore. The children are part of all of us. They are part of our community. That kind of thinking, in my view, the extreme individualism that Americans have. I am an individualist. I value individuality, but the extreme individualism, like I don't care about the next person's children, it's very sad. And I do think that it would be wonderful if we had at least equality in male-female leadership.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that mindset in the United States. I'm an individualist too. I want to have a polyamorous relationship if I want. I want other people to not have one if they don't want. And for all of us to make our own decisions. But, for us not to see how we're all part of an independent community, and that if there are no children and there's no education, everything will fall apart. It is kind of shocking, but that has kind of been in the DNA of America since the inception. We're the frontier people. We make it on our own, and we're not the best sharers. So that's, I think, part of the whole thing, and people kind of adjusting to the idea of polyamory is community and sharing and taking care of one another.
I just think it's wonderful. I love the idea that, I am freed up if I'm not interested in this or I have something else to do, and one or two partners will take care of it. And when you talked in your book about one of you being the designated babysitter while the other two went out on the town, I'm like, yeah, good for you. But I imagine that's rotational, right? That you take turns, like the designated driver, the designated babysitter.
We certainly actually do almost everything together. So
yeah,
the strict bedtime of 7:30, and after bedtime, it's adult time to watch a program or play a game or something else. And now the kids are old enough that we're comfortable having trusted babysitters that are COVID safe. See them while we go out. But, we did have that fear that maybe early life was going to be really stressful and people would just need a break. And we were prepared to really give it to each other and say, listen, you look tired, go to the other side of the house and go to sleep, or go out and relax. We've got this. Honestly, we didn't really need to do that very much, because it was with three of us and the egg donor visiting frequently, grandparents. It's actually been really easy. So it's a great idea. If anyone's stressed about parenthood, get yourself an extra husband.
Yeah. Polyamorous living. I know it is on the rise. It is increasing. And again, we don't know how many people are practicing because of the stigma involved. But the whole idea of it being open and accepted for the three or more people involved, and then if the people involved are accepting, then other people around, I think, would feel a lot less tense about it. It wouldn't feel so awkward, I'm guessing.
Yeah, visibility is really important. It actually feels a lot like coming out did for me in the 90s, where if you have other people that are on television and they're gay, but they're normal, they're not on TV because they're gay, they just happen to be gay, that makes a huge difference to kids so that they can see that they have a future. to know someone in their personal life is one of the most transforming things about attitudes towards gay people. You know someone, you realize they're just another person. They're not, Satan worshipers, or they're not out to hurt children or anything like that. They're just regular people. They just happen to be attracted to other men or women, depending. So that visibility is huge. But, as part of writing the book, I did look into research on non-monogamy and traditional cultures. And there was one study I found that said 22% of young people had been in some sort of consensually non-monogamous relationship. So I'm sure that's not the case for 80-year-olds, but, it is becoming more common, and people are being more accepting of that they might not have, some kind of exclusive relationship with a partner.
Wow, consensually, you mean out in the open, 22% of young people.
Well, that would mean that they agree to it. It doesn't mean that they necessarily broadcast it. So this was an anonymous survey, and so they're keeping that very private. But I know just by watching Facebook, not everyone is. People are, like, oh yeah, we had this guest, or my partner was able to do this, and I've met like the most ordinary friends and coworkers who turned out to have a non-monogamous relationship. Again, not a dramatic Tiger King sort of way, but in the most domestic way you can imagine. Went over to a married couple's house for a barbecue. There's a 5-year-old running around. There's a grandparent who's on home oxygen, like super domestic. We're just doing a barbecue here. And they had, a third in their relationship. They had a triad as well. And they're just, again, the most ordinary next door people you can imagine. So, it's definitely out there, and it's becoming more open, especially in, progressive communities.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you're coming back next week, Ian Jenkins, because I have so many more questions to ask you. And but I just, when you said the normalizing, I'm thinking of the TV show Modern Family that normalized gay couples so much that abrupt change. It was almost abrupt in our society of accepting homosexuality and homosexual marriage. Such a complete turnaround. I'm so gratified to see that. I think it's a wonderful thing to be out in the open and to look at the advantages of the fact that people who love each other can be together. It's all about love, all about love. So I just want everyone to know that I am interviewing Dr. Ian Jenkins, IAN, and Jenkins, Jenkins, author of 3 Dads and a Baby, Adventures in Modern Parenting. And this is available everywhere, I imagine, Ian, right? Everywhere. You can get it online, and you can get it in local bookstores, perhaps.
I know that it will be. I heard from our local Barnes & Noble that they're getting a bunch of books within a week. So I don't know if that's universal, but expect to see it. And there is an ebook, so if people...
Oh, good.
That's available anywhere in the world. Okay,
so 3 Dads and a Baby, Adventures in Modern Parenting, Ian Jenkins, Jenkins. And Ian, I am so delighted that you're coming back next week for part 2 of this enormously innovative and progressive intimate style. And I want to just say thank you so much, and to say goodbye to everyone. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer wishing you great relationships.